is Chandra. I represent a company called Axiom Consulting. I'm one of the co-founders there and I'm the CTO of that company. What we do is an 18-year-old company, so it's no longer a startup. What we do there is product design and innovation as a service. And what I'm going to talk to you about is midway through our journey, we had developed a lot of solutions and IP of our own during our consultation process. How we took that and looked at a new business model of developing products of our own and launching them in the market. So that's what I'll be talking about. Quick introduction, we are a global company. We are headquartered in Bangalore, but we have presence in North America, both technical and sales and support. We have offices in Brussels, Singapore and Latin. This is a broad spread of the product development that we do, and I will just focus on one of them and how we shifted gears in terms of offering these kind of services where we designed products or packages from end to end. So it would start from understanding the consumer, getting insights from the consumer, getting into creative design, which would take the insights of the consumer and come up with ideas around ergonomics, styling, form, functionality, all of those. Post which, that's what a typical product design company would do. But we don't stop there. Post which we take it into detailed engineering, which would mean a lot of mechanical manufacturing engineering, also electrical, electronics, and a lot of products these days are not without software. So there's a lot of software development that happens in realizing the overall product. We also have a group which takes the design intent and takes it into manufacturing. So they work closely with factories in India, China, Vietnam and other places where the design intent is transferred to first lot of production, post which it's handed over to whoever is the owner of this product. So today we're talking about business model discovery, and midway through the journey of our own design journey, we found out that after a while it becomes difficult to scale the business in the sense that you will get a lot of work, but that lot of work is proportional to the lot of people that you have to have. And as we go along, the bill rates also sort of stagnates, because what we are doing earlier was to bring in the high-end engineering which we were traditionally using in automotive and aerospace to other verticals. So we were premium at that point in time. But over a period, that premiumness gets down and the bill rate starts to become common. So that was one of the reasons where we are looking at how do we scale without scaling people. And over a period, we had built in a lot of unique methods and methodologies, tools, technologies, which help offer our consultation. There were these things where we were offering service using that, but we were not charging a premium for doing that, because we had a lot of knowledge that was used in the projects through our own small program softwares that we had built. But that was not advertised out, or we were not making money out of that specific initiative. So over a period, a lot of high volume players also started entering the place that we were working in. So the Tatas of the world or the Infosys, all of them started HCL. All of them started to have a smaller group, which meant it's harder to compete against them in the volume game. So we had to carve our own niche to stand out, as well as bring in unique proposition for our customers. And then, like I talked about, not having large teams. And then we had a lot of tools and technologies that we had built. And around that time, the computation also became far more affordable. There were a lot of open source technologies. A lot of you would have researched around doing IoT kind of work or machine learning kind of work, which are built out of open source technology. technologies. So there were a lot of technologies that were available in a mature format that you could take it to take our product ideas to market. So very high level I'll talk about. So earlier we were offering services around consumer transaction experiments, virtual package testing, or qualification, or design for distribution. These were services that we were offering. The knowledge that we had, we started to build unique pieces of software and even hardware in some cases, which meant that those were sellable products that we can take it to the market. And since we worked with our customers for 6, 8, 10 years in many cases, we had a captive market and audience for the products that we built. So there were interest in the customer base, and they were also in some ways co-creating with us, in the sense that we had small, lower cost alpha, beta setups that we had tied up with our customers, so that we get a softer launch of our products into the market. So, and before I get there, so this is how our product portfolio looks today. So we have softwares around, this is a virtual end of line where we look at evaluating packages for distribution. So it tells you what are the challenges that a package undergoes when you ship it from point A to point B, and what kind of design you have to do, what kind of routes you have to choose. Those are the things that you help sort through this. We have a lab automation software. This is a hardware which is an IoT based hardware which helps automate the lab software. I can spend a lot of time talking about it. I'll just give a highline about it. This is also a data capture tool which captures the shock, vibration, humidity, temperature, geolocation of any package that gets shipped anywhere in the world. So we have a lot of customers for this particular product. So in terms of the challenges that we faced in shifting gears like this, one is the people mindset, because we had a large team, relatively large team, which was into consulting. When I say consulting, people would look to customers to give us what the problem is. You give me a problem, I will understand and give you a solution. But the product mindset is totally different. You have to try to get those problems and try to look at how do I position my product to address that solution. So it's no longer a reactive proposition as in case of consulting. So even cultural challenges, the cultural challenge is still there is a work scope that is written out, and I read the work scope and I respond to that as a typical consulting culture. So to disrupt that and look at a product culture was very hard initially. So that was one of the challenges. Money is definitely a big challenge, because we had to subsidize the R&D for the products through the consulting revenue that we had. So we had to pull out money from our consulting business, do the R&D required to take the product to at least an alpha state before you show it to the customer, because I show a PPT of a product idea and trust nobody. I mean, you can show things and get attracted, but that's only up to a point. Beyond that, you have to show something in action. Tools and technologies, yes, that was a challenge because we had a lot of open source tools and technologies, but we also invested quite a bit on hardware and software to run that. So there was a lot of high performance computing that we invested in, and definitely the organizational change to realize that. Very quickly, there's no numbers to it, it's just a representative thing. One of the things that we looked at is how do we shift gears from being a product, from being a consulting house to being products. So as we looked at, initially we had a period of no revenues but a lot of manpower that needed to be put in before we started to get some pilots and get the revenue. That's a tricky period, because your revenues from the consulting will start to dip because you don't have manpower to service that, because some part of it is being subsidized here. And over a period, this period is what we have to sustain that business going forward. But at least if you look at it, if you were to start up fresh, you have to still go through the curve, but you don't have the cushion of the revenues. So that's the way we looked at it. And going forward now, the revenues have become streamlined to a small piece, where we have signed up contracts, annual contracts, which means that we need 5 people in one project or 10 people in another project, which means that the revenues stay constant. So that gives us a cushion to, even though I'm showing here, it's a mix of many blips along the way. I've just sort of averaged out the revenues. But the product revenues have steadily picked up, and it's starting to grow as well. So there is a big benefit for us to have made that shift. So that's in short what I wanted to share. Open to questions. I didn't structure it too well, but
can I ask some questions perhaps? If anybody has a question, you will. Yep.
So in terms of product building, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What all do you consider in terms of go-to-market?
Okay.
Then still build the product.
Okay. So for us, I can talk from our standpoint. For us, the go-to-market was already there because we were working with customers. That was our market already. So for example, we were working with our customers offering lab services where our people would go there, carry out experiments. They had a particular format, we had to fill those formats. These were complicated tests like drop test and other things that they had to make measurements and put out reports.
So what happens when if Kellogg's wants to launch a new product?
Yeah.
What is that we will be able to do with Kellogg's?
For us, that is traditional services that we do, wherein we have, we try to understand what's your go-to-market strategy, in the sense that is it nutritional, or are you targeting single mothers, or there is a portfolio of things that we try to understand. A part of it is also observational discussion with the customer, post which we go through the normal creative design engineering process. But along the way, we have these pieces of software that accelerates your typical go-to-market, which would have taken 2.5 years, shrink it to 18 months, for example. So that's the benefit of having these set of tools.
Any other questions? Okay. Can you go back to the product portfolio you talked about? See, how do you pick which product to go for?
Okay. So,
as a services company, invariably this is how it is, right? You
correct.
work with multiple clients. There
yeah.
are so many things you can actually do.
Correct. So, a big part of that decision is about our understanding of what the future market is going to be. We have worked with 10 customers, and this, for example, there are repeated questions around, can we find out what happens to my package when it goes through shipments? A lot of them had leakages, especially shampoo and laundry bottles. A lot of them had broken packages, and these were traditionally designed using experience, in the sense that somebody had a 20 years experience, would say this is how it's to be done, and there was not too much of science behind it. So once we started to hear the same story in multiple scenarios, it reinforced that is the probable starting point, where, let's say, instead of doing this, why don't you use science to design this? So we put out a proof of concept of how it can be done, is how we started off. So the choice of which one to take was through understanding of the market, understanding of what the potential.
Does that involve customers' willingness to pay for it at a POC level?
Yes, definitely yes. Because the way you structure it is also a quasi-project.
See, this is a very common thing among most services companies' journey. But this is where 90% of them actually fail. They have so many products that they can go after. Invariably, they go after almost
all of them.
All of it.
That also depends on the ownership because each product, let's say I have these 4, we had about 20 different things that we were wanting to work on, and they are still in our pipeline. Why we have not
So
chosen
where
that?
you put your
Yeah.
where you,
We know where the money is going to come from in the near term.
can you talk about something where you actually went after as a product and it failed?
Actually, even this one failed in the first 6 months
Why?
because the market was not ready. Because and the way we had pitched it was we had built a nice front end, as you see it here. The back end was very complicated design software, the simulation software that needed to be used, and that needed to work only on a high performance computing, which meant that the customers were not willing to invest on any hardware, software, because that's not their core. Their core is to make biscuits, or their core is to make shampoos. They are not going to invest on things that are peripheral to their core. Which is when we came back to the drawing board, looked at that as a challenge, and instead of having to use these simulation tools, we ran the simulation and parked it in a machine learning framework. So that's the shift that we made. We failed and then we shifted there.
To throw in some MBA jargons, it would be how do you develop a business model and then how do you go about pivoting it. Right?
And all along it is going to be multiple pivots, because you try something, you obviously sometimes will click, sometimes will not. So you have to make those. What we are seeing is a lot more traction today than 3 years ago when we started. We thought it's going to be very hot at that point.
And what gave that success aspect? What is that one thing?
The success aspect is the learning around the customer will not invest on hardware and software. We were thinking their R&D budget is X billion, part of it will come in as hardware and software. We realized that X billion is
Lot of
for
assumptions.
chemistry of the shampoo and not for this. So that's the learning. So once we learned that, we had to change it to a point where the costs are acceptable. Cost per unit is acceptable. So the business model also, I mean, you look at their spends and try to see where it fits in, but it doesn't work all the time.
But when you first went with one positioning of product, hardware and software, and when you went back again, how was it received? I mean, first of all, they would have thought, okay, you already come and try to sell it.
Yeah. So again, it depends on the customer. All customers are not like that, because they are people who have worked with us and they're willing to listen to the proposition that we are taking. What we said is, we have taken away the headache of hardware and software. Are you willing to see it again? So that's when the journey started again, and it didn't like today I went in, tomorrow I got a PO. I mean, it's a journey from that point to actually winning over the customer.
Well, any questions? Great, thanks. I thought it would help everybody.
Yeah, thank you.